To be clear, what that anger that we're seeing comes from, there are names, there are faces that Barbara knows their stories, she's helped them, and she's helped them with limited resources from the state. She's been doing this for decades. And when you've seen what Barbara's seen, when you know the people Barbara knows, you don't give a shit anymore. You're not trying to play these games, you're not doing it nice, and you're doing whatever it takes, which is exactly what most of the people in this circle are doing. That's exactly what Rhode Islanders are doing, and that's exactly what the leaders of this state are not doing. They're not doing what it takes to look out for Rhode Islanders. I want to introduce you to someone who is doing what it takes. Dr. Paul Nissan, who's been doing this work in Woonsocket. By the way, this is not a Providence problem, this is a Rhode Island problem. Okay, every nook and cranny of this state, including Woonsocket, which is dealing with an unprecedented crisis, and he will share with you what he's witnessed, how he has been forced to heal the wounds that the leaders of this state have laid on the bodies of people that because they decided that some people should sleep outside. Dr. Nissan.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Nissan. I'm here first and foremost as a warm body in solidarity with my community. This is my community.
Yes.
I'm also a primary care physician. I work up in Woonsocket, and I'm here to elevate and amplify the stories of my patients because it needs to be heard, because we need to fully understand what this means to a lot of people. But I do first want to acknowledge today, for all of you out here right now, just know that you are standing amongst giants. There are people here, many of whom have had lived experiences where society has tried to erase them, but they have survived, and now they're here fighting for others to be seen. There are giants. There are people here who have given their entire lives to fighting this fight because that is who they are. And I think that is just incredible. I want to be transparent. That's not my story because there has been a time in my life where I have been that person who has seen my unhoused brother or sister and walked right by. There have been times where we're at the traffic light and you just maybe don't make a little bit of eye contact, or you make some kind of story up in your mind about what's going on and what you actually need to be getting to next. I was trying to find where that comes from. My sister Hannah wrote a poem that kind of hit me hard. She writes, "It is hard to let your heart break every day, to feel yourself melt into someone else's suffering. It is easier to avoid sidewalk cracks, to drink lemonade and ignore the news, to dig a hole and crawl into it, allowing only sunlight to reach your face. It is easier to think, not me, not me, not me, not me, until you are not quite sure who you are at all." I wanted to share that because I don't know all of you, but I know that there are other people out there who are now with this movement and with these stories coming out, starting to understand what we're up against. I want to share that it is my patients and these giants amongst us who have brought me into the light, who have shown me how to feel again. And I want to talk about some of the stories of my patients today. Just today, I saw 4 patients, all 4 of whom who needed housing. All 4 of whom I could not get them housing. There was a point where they called CES, which is the number that, apparently you're supposed to call, that's the only way to figure out whether you can get shelter. And CES says, "Oh, I'll call back in a little bit later and maybe will there be a bed." At one point they said there was a bed, they called back again, "Oh, nope, the bed's taken up, sorry, you'll have to spend the night out." And then they start talking like, "Well, man, why did that person get the bed?" And they make us fight for scraps. That's messed up. You don't have people trying to fight each other who are all trying to survive. We have to come together to fight the right place, the right peoples. And that's the people who are working back here, who are ignoring the pleas and the cries of my patients. I have a patient who suffers from using drugs, and they want to be clean. Their partner, who could live with their mom, stays out on the streets with them because the only time they don't use drugs is when they're together. She then ended up getting COVID. She couldn't go back to her mom's house. She couldn't get her mom sick. She couldn't go into the shelters. And when we asked about hotel or motel vouchers, sorry, not for today. That night was the night we had a rain and windstorm. We tried looking for her. We tried finding her, but we couldn't find where she was. And I heard later on that she is still okay, but that should never, ever have happened. That's what we're talking about when we say this is a crime against humanity, because we have a shared humanity here. A patient today just told me they weren't even necessarily looking to see a doctor. They just saw me and well, maybe let me come talk. And the moment I asked them, like, do you have a place to stay? They broke down crying. They have a 5-year-old daughter. They want to be clean. They want to be sober. It is so hard to do that when you're living on the streets, because you want to numb the pain any way you can. And when we try to call CES again, first of all, there's like a 1-hour wait. And then if their phone hasn't died by then they might get a call to call back again later. These are the stories that we're seeing and having to eat every day. And we can't do that anymore. So that's why, about 3 weeks ago, we first started this just rallying in Woonsocket to talk about there's an exploding crisis happening up there. And when we were there was a small group of us, but 2 of those people came up to me later, and that was Cynthia and Matt. And I had seen a little bit, and they said that they were running for office and they were here to support. And so we started talking, and I started sharing stories with Cynthia. I started sending her messages of every day what patients are telling me and what we have had to put up with. And when she decided that, all right, enough is enough, we all knew that this was the time to step up. And that's why we've been out here every night for 14 nights to make our stand, that this will not continue, that we will come together as a community and we will find our people power to make our voices heard.